Hi, I'm Mike Shea, author of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master and SlyFlourish.com. This is the fourth video in this series in which we're taking a look at the adventure The Lost Mine of Phandelver. This adventure is included in the D&D Starter Set and is likely the most popular 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adventure. In previous videos, we've talked about how the characters went through Chapter 1, in which they fought a bunch of goblins, Chapter 2, in which they went to the town of Phandalin and dealt with a bunch of situations there, Chapter 3, in which they went to the outskirts around Phandalin and went to many different adventure locations. And now we come to Chapter 4, where the characters are going to Wave Echo Cave. So unlike Chapter 2 and 3, which were very wide open and had many different options that the characters could explore, in this case, they are headed straight into a dungeon. One big dungeon with a lot of different things going on. And that's really kind of the weakness of this chapter. It's a great big dungeon with a whole lot of stuff going on, and it can get pretty tedious if we're not careful. So first of all, the characters should be 4th level by the time they get here. I recommend using milestone experience rather than having to deal with experience points. So by the time the characters have dealt with all of the various situations in and around Phandalin, they've dealt with the Red Brands, they've gone to Cragmaw Castle, they've dealt with the village of Thundertree. Once they've hit all of those, they should be about level 4. And once they're level 4, now they're ready to go on here. Like the hideout for the Red Brands, you can change what monsters are where in this dungeon. So, for example, there are a lot of ghouls in this dungeon, and you might just not want to have one ghoul fight after another. If you feel like battles are getting tedious and it's just getting kind of boring, feel free to remove monsters from a room. I had no problem, for example, removing all the monsters that were in room 6 because I knew they've already fought a bunch of monsters ahead of time. And it was just time to kind of get things moving forward. So feel free to add monsters, remove monsters, add up, increase or reduce the amount of hit points that monsters have, increase or decrease the amount of damage they have to change up their threat. You have a lot of different dials that you can use in order to keep the pacing of the game going at the right pace. And that's really the key to this, is watching the emotions of the players and seeing, are they excited? Are they interested? Are they in suspense? Or are they bored and tired and frustrated? And you need to change up the pace depending on how that is going. One of the areas, for example, is if you look in Area 2 on the map, there's a great big maze of stuff going on there. And most of it really doesn't have anything to do with something else. So you can hand wave a lot of that whole section. Instead of carefully gridding out every square, you can say you travel through a whole bunch of different caverns that are all recently carved or carved long ago by the dwarves. You run into many dead ends, but you do find that there are about 3 main entryways that go into, and then you can kind of decide they go into Area 10, they go into Area 9, they go into Area 6. But you don't have to have them navigate every single square in that place because it's just going to get boring quickly. So, but once they start getting to the tail end of the adventure, certainly the Forge in Area 13, 14, and 15, where they fight a spectator, the cliff sides in Area 16, where they actually get to see why it's called Wave Echo Cave and watch the water rising up and down, and then of course the battle with our final boss in Area 19 and 20. That's where things can get really exciting. So there are a whole lot of rooms and chambers in this adventure. I would not necessarily recommend running every single room and chamber. I would feel free, particularly in Area 2, and particularly with the monsters, to go ahead and remove monsters when things are getting boring, or describe, sort of abstract their exploration of certain areas like number 2, so that they don't have to go through every single square and figure out every dead end in this place. It can get really tedious to do that. But once they get to the tail end of the adventure, it gets really exciting, and it's a great conclusion to the whole adventure. Once you're done with Lost Mine of Phandelver, the big question is, where do you go from here? I'd say my biggest recommendation, and it's not necessarily the most popular one, is it might be time to start at level 1 again. Most of the 5th edition hardback adventures start at level 1, and if you go straight into Tyranny of Dragons, for example, that starts at level 1. Curse of Strahd starts at level 1. Almost all of them do. Storm King's Thunder can work really well if you begin at level 5. You just kind of skip the whole introduction, but that's a pretty good introduction. But the other one is Princes of the Apocalypse. Has a bunch of adventures early on that get you to level 5, but you can skip that and go, you can skip that whole introduction and go right into the rest of Princes of Apocalypse. So this is the final video in this series. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it and you think it's useful for others, please share it with your friends. Please share it with any DMs you know that are going to be running Lost Mine of Phandelver in the future. And we'll look at doing other videos like this in the future. Thank you very much.